When running Romex, also known as non-metallic sheath cable, between fixtures clamped to 2x4s in a ceiling cavity, several National Electrical Code or NEC considerations come into play. While the NEC doesn't provide explicit instructions solely for the scenario, it does outline general requirements applicable to all electrical installations. These requirements are designed to ensure safety and prevent electrical hazards. Firstly, conductors must be protected from physical damage. This is a fundamental principle in electrical wiring. Romex, being a relatively vulnerable cable type, needs protection from potential impacts, abrasions, or other forms of physical stress that could compromise its insulation and lead to shorts or ground faults. To meet this requirement, one option is to run the Romex through holes drilled in the 2x4s. These holes should be carefully drilled to avoid sharp edges that could damage the cable. Another approach is to protect the Romex by enclosing it in conduit or another approved protective raceway. Conduit provides a robust physical barrier, shielding the cable from damage. Secondly, conductors must be securely fastened. Proper securement is crucial to prevent strain on the Romex and maintain the integrity of the electrical connections. The NEC mandates that Romex be clamped to the 2x4s using approved clamps or staples specifically designed for this purpose. These clamps or staples should be installed at intervals that provide adequate support and prevent the cable from sagging or being subjected to undue stress. It's important to use the correct type of clamp or staple to avoid damaging the cable's outer jacket. Thirdly, conductors must be spaced apart. Adequate spacing between conductors is essential to prevent overheating and potential insulation breakdown. The NEC generally requires that Romex be spaced apart at least 2 inches from each other and from any metal objects. This spacing helps to dissipate heat generated by the conductors and reduces the risk of inductive heating in nearby metal components. It is particularly important to maintain this spacing when multiple Romex cables are run in close proximity. Fourthly, conductors must not be overloaded. Overloading a circuit is a common cause of electrical fires. The NEC requires that the Romex be sized appropriately for the amperage of the circuit it serves. This means selecting a cable with an ampacity rating that is sufficient to handle the maximum current the circuit is expected to carry. The ampacity of a Romex cable is determined by its gauge and insulation type. It's essential to consult the NEC ampacity tables to ensure that the cable is properly sized for the circuit's overcurrent protection device, such as a circuit breaker or fuse. Beyond these general requirements, specific considerations apply to recessed lighting fixtures. Firstly, recessed lighting fixtures must be listed for use in the location where they are installed. This listing ensures that the fixture has been tested and certified by a recognized testing laboratory, such as Underwriters Laboratories or Intertech, for safe operation in its intended environment. The listing will specify the fixture's suitability for different types of installations, such as insulated ceilings or damp locations. Secondly, recessed lighting fixtures must be installed in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. The manufacturer's instructions provide detailed guidance on the proper installation of the fixture, including wiring connections, mounting methods, and any specific precautions that need to be taken. Following these instructions is crucial to ensure safe and reliable operation of the fixture. Thirdly, recessed lighting fixtures must be supported by a non-combustible surface. Recessed lighting fixtures generate heat during operation, and this heat can potentially ignite combustible materials that are in close proximity. The NEC requires that recessed lighting fixtures be supported by a non-combustible surface such as metal or ceramic to prevent the spread of fire. This requirement may necessitate the use of a metal box or other approved mounting method to provide the necessary non-combustible support. In summary, while the NEC doesn't have explicit rules solely for running Romex between fixtures clamped to 2x4s in a ceiling cavity, the general electrical installation and recessed lighting fixture requirements should be followed. Always prioritize safety and consult with a qualified electrician if needed. Here's a more detailed breakdown of the NEC requirements mentioned. Let's start with conductor protection. The NEC mandates protection from physical damage for all conductors. This protection can be achieved in several ways. Firstly, using raceways like electrical metallic tubing or EMT, rigid metal conduit or RMC, or PVC conduit provides a robust physical barrier against impacts, abrasions, and other potential sources of damage. The type of raceway used depends on the specific application and environmental conditions. Secondly, installing the cable through bored holes in framing members is another common method. When using this approach, ensure that the holes are drilled at least 1.25 inches from the edge of the framing member to prevent nails or screws from penetrating the cable. Thirdly, using protective plates or sleeves can shield cables from damage where they pass through walls or floors. These plates or sleeves should be made of metal or another durable material and securely fastened in place. Now let's discuss secure fastening. The NEC requires that all conductors be securely fastened to prevent strain on connections and maintain the integrity of the wiring system. Firstly, using cable ties or straps is a common method for securing Romex cables to framing members or other supports. These ties or straps should be made of an approved material and installed at intervals specified by the NEC. Secondly, employing cable clamps or connectors is essential when terminating Romex cables at electrical boxes or other enclosures. These clamps or connectors provide a secure connection and prevent the cable from being pulled out of the box. Thirdly, using staples specifically designed for Romex cables is another option. These staples should be carefully driven into the framing members to avoid damaging the cable's outer jacket. Spacing requirements are also crucial for preventing overheating and ensuring safe operation. Firstly, maintaining a minimum of 2 inches separation between conductors and metal objects is generally required by the NEC. This spacing helps to dissipate heat and reduces the risk of inductive heating. Secondly, bundling multiple cables together can increase their operating temperature and reduce their ampacity. The NEC provides guidelines for directing the ampacity of bundled cables to account for this effect. Thirdly, avoiding contact with heat sources, such as recessed lighting fixtures or heating ducts, is essential to prevent insulation breakdown. Overloading conductors is a serious safety hazard that can lead to overheating and fires. Firstly, determining the correct wire gauge for the circuit is crucial. The NEC provides ampacity tables that specify the allowable current carrying capacity for different wire gauges and insulation types. Secondly, ensuring that the overcurrent protection device, such as a circuit breaker or fuse, is properly sized to protect the circuit is essential. The overcurrent protection device should be rated no higher than the ampacity of the smallest conductor in the circuit. Thirdly, avoiding overloading the circuit by connecting too many loads is important. Calculate the total load on the circuit and ensure that it does not exceed the capacity of the wiring. Specific requirements for recessed lighting fixtures include listing, insulation, and support. Firstly, checking for proper listing by a recognized testing laboratory ensures that the fixture meets safety standards and is suitable for its intended use. Secondly, following manufacturer's instructions for installation guarantees that the fixture is installed correctly and safely. Thirdly, providing non-combustible support, such as a metal box, prevents the spread of fire in case of overheating. Remember, these are general guidelines, and specific requirements may vary depending on the local electrical code and the specific application. Always consult the latest edition of the NEC and local electrical codes for the most up-to-date information. It's also important to understand the concept of ampacity, which is the current carrying capacity of a conductor. The ampacity of a conductor depends on several factors, including its gauge, insulation type, and ambient temperature. The NEC provides ampacity tables that list the allowable ampacities for different types of conductors under various conditions. When selecting Romex for a particular application, it's essential to choose a cable with an ampacity that is sufficient to handle the maximum current the circuit is expected to carry. For example, a 14-gauge copper Romex cable with type NMB insulation has an ampacity of 15 amps at an ambient temperature of 30 degrees Celsius or 86 degrees Fahrenheit. This means that the cable can safely carry up to 15 amps of current without overheating. It's also important to consider voltage drop when selecting Romex. Voltage drop is the decrease in voltage that occurs along the length of a conductor due to its resistance. Excessive voltage drop can cause lights to dim, motors to run sluggishly, and other electrical equipment to malfunction. The NEC recommends limiting voltage drop to 3% for branch circuits and 5% for feeders. To minimize voltage drop, use larger conductors or shorten the length of the circuit. In addition to the requirements discussed above, there are also several best practices that can help to ensure a safe and reliable electrical installation. Firstly, always turn off the power before working on any electrical circuits. This is the most important safety precaution you can take. Secondly, use properly insulated tools to prevent electric shock. Thirdly, carefully inspect all wiring for damage before installing it. Fourthly, make sure all connections are tight and secure. Fifthly, label all circuits clearly to avoid confusion. Sixthly, test all circuits after installation to ensure they are working properly. Finally, if you are not comfortable working with electricity, hire a qualified electrician to do the work. When working with Romex and sealing cavities, it's also important to consider the presence of insulation. Insulation can trap heat and reduce the ampacity of the Romex. If Romex is run through insulation, it may be necessary to direct its ampacity to account for the increased heat. The NEC provides guidelines for directing ampacity in insulated environments. Furthermore, be mindful of the potential for physical damage when working in sealing cavities. Avoid stepping on or damaging the Romex while working in the area. If necessary, protect the Romex with plywood or other materials to prevent damage. Also, consider the routing of the Romex to avoid sharp bends or kinks that could damage the cable. The minimum bending radius for Romex is typically 5 times the diameter of the cable. Sharp bends can damage the insulation and reduce the cable's ampacity. When clamping Romex to 2x4s, use approved clamps or staples that are specifically designed for this purpose. Avoid using nails or screws to secure the Romex, as these can damage the cable. The clamps or staples should be installed at intervals that provide adequate support and prevent the cable from sagging or being subjected to undue stress. It's also important to ensure that the clamps or staples are not over-tightened, as this can damage the cable's outer jacket. When making connections to recessed lighting fixtures, follow the manufacturer's instructions carefully. Use the correct wiring methods and connectors to ensure a secure and reliable connection. Pay close attention to the polarity of the wires and ensure that the black wire is connected to the hot terminal and the white wire is connected to the neutral terminal. Also, make sure the ground wire is properly connected to the grounding terminal. When installing recessed lighting fixtures in insulated ceilings, use fixtures that are rated for insulated ceiling applications. These fixtures are designed to prevent overheating and reduce the risk of fire. They typically have a thermal protector that will shut off the fixture if it gets too hot. Also, ensure that the insulation is kept away from the fixture to allow for proper ventilation. In addition to the NEC requirements, there may also be local electrical codes that apply to Romex installations. It's important to check with your local building department to determine if there are any additional requirements. Local codes may vary depending on the jurisdiction and the specific application. By following these guidelines and consulting with a qualified electrician when needed, you can ensure a safe and reliable Romex installation in your ceiling cavity. Remember, electrical work can be dangerous, and it's always best to err on the side of caution.